It's one of the most watched Olympic sports every 4 years. Track and field is set to take center stage in the Paris Games during the 2024 Olympics. And who better to talk about it than one of the best to ever do it? Six-time Olympic medalist, four-time world champion, three-time gold medalist, and St. Louis's own Jackie Joyner-Kersee. Jackie, thanks for joining us today in studio.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so it's been 40 years since you made your Olympic debut. What do you remember about those 1984 games?
Wow. Thinking back on 1984, 40 years, wow. But you know what? I can remember the anxiety because I was in the Coliseum watching the opening ceremonies because at that time, track and field started the first weekend. And because I was competing right the next day, I wasn't able to participate, but standing in the stadium, and I realized this is really a huge deal because it was just thousands and thousands of people everywhere.
Now, every 4 years since then, right, you compete for a while and then you've been such a great ambassador for the sport ever since. What is this time of year like every 4 years for you as you get to see so many other athletes chase their dreams like you did back then?
You know what, I'm very just excited for them, for their families, and really being able to see the Olympians who are representing the United States going into Paris because 2021-20 was somewhat canceled, but it wasn't canceled so that families and fans couldn't see the athletes to compete. So athletes that are making their first Olympic team or their second Olympic team, now they get to experience the true, real Olympic, atmosphere. So I'm very excited for them, and I'm on pins and needles because I know quite a few of them, but I'm wishing them very well.
Okay, this year you're going to the Olympics in a different fashion than you have maybe in the past. But what are you most excited about when you get to Paris and really about the track and field events this year? Because there's a lot of really good storylines and a lot of really good athletes, especially from here in the States.
Oh, yes. To be able to see some of our local athletes compete, Brandon Miller being one, I love him and his family, but then also my husband who is coaching Sydney McLaughlin, being able to see her compete, but then Anna Hall is someone that I communicate on a regular basis and mentor, so seeing her compete in the heptathlon. But then also Tyra Davis in the long jump, because, that's my favorite event. But I think we are a stack across the board to see Noah Lyles in the 100 and to see Fred Curley, and to see them all compete at the highest level. And then also it's just going to be a great meet, yes.
You get to be a mentor to so many lucky athletes. When they're going into their first games, what is some pieces of advice you give them? Because the stage is so big and it's brighter than they've ever had it before, but you've been on that stage many times before and you've experienced that. What is your advice to some of those athletes that maybe be new to the Olympics?
My advice to first-time Olympians, one is that you're in the Olympic Village. There are so many things that you have available to you, like getting massages. But if you know that you don't get a sports massage every day, don't take advantage of those things and make sure you stay within your own schedule. Talk with your coaches because you have your Olympic coach, but they also have their own personal coaches. So don't change anything. Don't get in there and try something new. Or they might make this fancy dish. Your system might not be accustomed to that just because it's available to you. Sometimes don't take advantage of all the things that's available to you in the Olympic Village, but get your rest, focus, prioritize, time management, like in college, time management here, and then stay hydrated and go out there and have fun and do your very best.
You talk about being a mentor and having a close connection with a lot of Olympians. What's more nerve-wracking for you, when you would lace it up and do the events, or watching some of these athletes that you've built such a great relationship with?
It's more nerve-wracking sitting there watching because you want them to do so well, and it's nothing I can do. It's just sit there and pray and hope for the very best. And it is very nerve-wracking. I can imagine because my husband coached me all those times, and I would just go out there and do what I had to do. But being on the other side, the anxiety, and that's why you need family and friends to keep you calm. Because if you're calm, then that's transferable, to your athlete out there competing.
So let's say you have a little bit of downtime in Paris. What's your favorite Olympic sport other than track and field, and one maybe this year that you want to go watch or you're looking forward to?
Oh, you know what? I'm always looking forward to seeing gymnastics, basketball, both men and women. I love volleyball, and let me see what else. Whatever I can go and watch. Even sometimes the boxing is good as well, and yes, whatever. I remember back in the day, my physical therapist, he was a big wrestler. So I would go see the wrestling, I watched John Smith as he was coming up, so I just like to see the athletes do their very best. And when I got some downtime, because I don't have anything to do outside being an ambassador and doing some appearances, but other than that, I'm going to enjoy it.
What's it like for you to see the next generation of St. Louis athletes be able to do this? You mentioned Brandon Miller, Don Harper Nelson did it a few years back, but really to see the evolution of the great athletes in this city that you call home be able to go on that Olympic stage like you did and have success.
You know what, the evolution, you look at, there's so many great athletes that come out of this region. And if you look at it with the lack of support, because most people don't tune in until it's Olympic year. And a lot of times those athletes are training, they're having the jobs, and then they sacrifice so much. But to see some of the best come out of this region really is just a stepping stone for the next generation. We had Olympic Day probably in June, and to know that the Olympics were in 1904, right at Wash U. So there is history here. So I think it's always great when we can keep pointing to our developmental programs, because from our developmental program come your state champions, your national champions, and eventually your Olympic champions.
All right, I'm going to take you back 40 years to end this. When you got that first medal, right, it seemed like it springboarded you into the next few Olympics to be able to get your 6-time Olympic medalist. What was it about that moment? Did you see that potential that, okay, I got a taste of it and I want more? What was that moment like?
That moment winning the silver medal, that I was dealing with an injury and I doubted myself, and I realized that if I want to be the best in the world, that I have to be tough mentally, not just the physical, but the mental, have the total package. And that set me up, because I left Los Angeles and I said, if God blessed me to make another Olympic team, I want to be the toughest athlete out there mentally. And that set me up to go on to the next Olympics, because injuries happen. It's how you adapt and how you adjust and how you manage, the expectations of yourself as well, the expectations that others expect for you to do.
Who better to hear about the Olympics than one of the best to ever do it? Safe travels over to Paris, and we appreciate you joining us here at First Alert 4.
Always. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.